Have you ever seen a cattle farm this big? This isn't a national park. It's a real working ranch in Australia. And it's bigger than some whole countries in Europe. So what makes these farms so huge? Why do Australian ranchers need this much land? Let's break it down. This is Anna Creek Station. It's the largest cattle station in the world. How big is it? Over 23,000 square kilometers. That's bigger than Israel. It's even larger than entire countries in Europe, like Slovenia, or nearly half the size of Ireland. But here's the thing, Anna Creek isn't some rare exception. There are dozens of mega ranches like this across Australia. So, what's going on here? To understand, we need to look at the land, the people, and the history behind it all. Australia is a giant country. It's about the same size as the continental United States, but with a much smaller population and a whole lot of empty space. Most of Australia's land is dry and flat. This kind of land isn't great for growing crops, but it works for raising cattle. Australia has about 387 million hectares of agricultural land. That's more than double the size of the entire European Union's farmland. But here's the catch. A huge part of this land isn't very productive. The soil is poor, rainfall is low, grass grows slowly and in small amounts. So if you want to raise cattle out here, you need a lot of land for just a few animals. It's called extensive grazing, and it's the only way to make it work in the Outback. That's why cattle stations in Australia are so massive. Not because they want to be, but because they have to be. Australia has one of the lowest population densities on Earth. Just about 3 people per square kilometre. Compare that to Europe, where it's often over 100 people per square kilometre. That means fewer towns, fewer roads, and fewer workers. Most of these cattle stations are hours from the nearest town, and in some cases, the nearest neighbour. With such long distances and so few people, ranchers can't rely on lots of labour. So instead, they rely on space, spreading cattle out over huge areas. And to manage it all, they use dirt bikes, drones, and even helicopters. It's modern cowboy work, but on a scale most of us can't imagine. Much of Australia's interior is hot, dry, and unpredictable. Rainfall is low, and when it does rain, it can be months or even years between decent showers. This kind of climate makes it tough to grow lush grass or crops. So instead of feeding cattle with grain or rich pasture, ranchers depend on natural grazing, whatever grows from the land when it grows. But here's the challenge. In these conditions, you need more land to feed fewer cows. On average, it can take over 10 hectares just to support 1 head of cattle in dry regions. That's about the size of 20 football fields per cow. So, to raise even a modest herd, you need thousands of hectares, and that's why these stations grow so large. In Australia, the land controls the scale. If the grass is scarce, the land must stretch farther. Now let's head to Europe, where the farming story looks very different. The average European farm is just 17 hectares. In places like the Netherlands or Italy, many farms are even smaller, just a few hectares, or the size of a small park. In fact, over 60% of farms in Europe are under 5 hectares. Why so small? Europe has rich soil, mild climate, and regular rainfall. That means farmers can raise more animals on less land. And because the land is so productive, they can even grow the cattle feed right there on the farm. Plus, European farmland is often inherited, split between generations, leading to many small farms side by side. In Europe, it's all about efficiency per hectare. In Australia, it's all about surviving the vastness. To understand today's massive cattle stations, you have to go back to the 1800s. When European settlers arrived in Australia, they brought sheep and cattle and found that the best way to manage livestock in the outback was to spread them over huge areas of land. The government gave out massive land leases. Why? Because there was so much land, and it wasn't good for crops, but it could support animals if you gave them space. Of course, this history also includes the displacement of indigenous people, whose land was taken for grazing. Over time, Australia became a major beef producer, not just for locals, but for export. Today, Australia exports around 70% of its beef, feeding markets in Japan, China, the US, and beyond. And while the outback still feels remote, technology has helped stations grow even bigger, with drones, GPS, and even remote water monitoring systems. Big land, tough history, global demand. It all adds up to an industry that runs on scale. Australia's cattle industry isn't just big, it's a global player. Every year, Australia exports over 1 million tons of beef. That makes it one of the top beef exporters in the world. These massive farms help keep costs lower, especially when competing with other big beef countries like Brazil and the US. And today, large-scale stations are also adapting. They are using technology to track cattle, monitor water tanks, and even reduce emissions. But it's not easy. These farms face drought, labor shortages, and rising costs. Managing land this large means dealing with challenges at a national scale. Still, for many in the outback, this land is more than just business. It's a way of life, passed down through generations. So, why are Australia's cattle farms so huge? Because they have to be. The land is dry, the grass is sparse, and the people are few and far between. But out here, scale isn't just a choice. It's a survival strategy. Where Europe farms in tight patches, Australia spreads wide, using every bit of land it can. It's a story of geography, history, and human grit. If you enjoyed this deep dive into cattle farming, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more livestock stories from around the world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.